the way Hannah and I would start as well if we were investigating a new researcher. We'd take a look at a place like Google Scholar to see if we can get a really broad overview of the work they're doing, and definitely we'd find their faculty page. So we're going to start out doing that here and basically go through a variety of different research tools, and what we want you to do is to use the piece of paper next to you, there's two of them, to kind of build a visual representation of their scholarly network. So the topics, the journals they publish in, the people they publish with, people, topics, and publication. To kind of figure out a way to present that to us visually. So we're going to start out by looking at a few places where you can keep track of OSU research as it emerges. And we want you all to think about a researcher that you're going to investigate. And we'd actually like you to work in pairs on this because it's a little more effective and fun if you're working with someone else. So your job is going to be to actually choose a researcher that you're going to investigate at the end of this. But first I'm going to show you how to get to this page that we created for you. Everything we talk about is referenced here, some of it in more depth than we're going to be talking about today. So you get to this page in a not so intuitive way, so pay attention here. So from the library homepage, you're going to go to the Find It menu, and almost everything we talk about today you'll eventually find in the Find It menu. And then we're going to go over to Research Guides. That part's fine. This is the part that's a little less intuitive. Because this isn't a class with a department, we had to put it here under Learn About. So it's here in Learn About, you open that up, and then it's under STEM Leaders. So that's where you'll find it. Ideally, if there's a place where you could post that link, make it a little more accessible, that would be ideal. Okay, so one thing our usability testing tells us definitively is that no one ever notices that there are multiple tabs here. So I'm showing you that there are multiple tabs here. We're starting out on the activity and then moving our way across. And then the last one is different places that you can find help. So in the middle here, there's a couple ways, resources that you can use to keep up with OSU research. One thing is that OSU, like most universities, issues press releases to announce new research and new discoveries. They issue multiple press releases a day normally. And you'll find those here at this link. You can actually dig in and look specifically at the research coming out of a particular college if you want, or you can look at everything that's coming out. And what you'll find here are new studies, new projects, new grants, and things like that. So that's a really good way to track it. If you're a social media person, you can do basically the same thing, get the same content on Twitter. OSU News down here is basically that list I just showed you. And several of our colleges and schools also will put those press releases out every day on Twitter. So we want you to start out by settling on a researcher, like I said. You can use these to find something that you just want to investigate for the next hour. That would be great. Or if you have someone in mind that you really want to look into more deeply, you can choose that. But like I said, we want you to work in pairs. So for the next maybe 3 minutes, do a little bit of exploring and negotiating and choose a person that you're going to investigate for the rest of the time.
And every one person per pair or
one person per pair, yeah. Okay. Any questions? Okay, so let's start with that.
What department? Yeah. Yeah.
I'll go ahead.
We just did lots and lots of is how I got it.
I'm not as
It's like fish about
You guys need to decide we should do it.
No, they just want us to decide.
Question?
Okay, so there.
So, do you have something to
Can we
say?
take these minutes?
So, So actually, the person who has what's going on with science? Yeah, interesting project. So you can explore and see what other.
Yeah. The drop down menu is dropping down.
It doesn't drop down. Well, that sounds great.
You guys know what you're doing over here?
How about yours? So if he's
Mine's doing the same thing as research.
learn about options to get to the essence. The map.
How you guys doing over here? Get your researcher figured out and everything?
Mine isn't either.
You're done?
Mine's on Windows. Mine's on Windows.
You guys got your researcher figured out okay?
Oh, like click that link. Click that. The orange one. Right here. There we go. Now it should drop down.
I'm so sorry.
You
Yay!
guys got your researcher picked out?
These two have been,
Is that what all of you are?
those two have been
Not the people.
If it clicks the orange link, you can't drop down.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's just a picture. You're right, I should have made the picture a link. That would have been better
How you doing over here? I think that's okay.
Do we need to?
No.
I guess just one sounds interesting to you. I guess just read until you find one that sounds interesting. Okay.
Are we doing it in person or is it research? No, we're doing it in person. We're doing it on a person, right?
Okay, so now we're going to do a little investigating, and we're going to do some of the same things that some of you have done. One thing is to find the faculty page here at OSU. And the easiest way to find the real faculty page is to actually go through the faculty member or researcher's college and look for a faculty directory. So that's the easiest thing to do. If you just use the search, you're going to get other stuff, and if you use the directory, that's not actually going to link you to their faculty page. So this is normally what I do. So that's one thing we want you to do, and to start creating that network now. So you're going to start looking at the different topics that they're researching and also maybe different people that they research with. The other thing we're going to do is to go to Google Scholar and look for articles by that researcher. So I'm actually going to have to pick an article here to do this. Let's see, that's just where I was. I don't know, anything look interesting? Okay. Start here. And I found the author's name by reading the article, and they're going to list the author's name and the journal, probably somewhere in here. So I'm going to pick his name, and then I'm going to go to Google Scholar and look for articles by him. I'm going to put it in quotation marks to make it a little more specific, and I'm going to just look at articles, and then I'm going to bring up the list of results. He's created a profile, which is great. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But one thing that I want to show you at this point that makes Google Scholar much more effective, particularly if you're using it off campus. So if you use this, for example, when you were at home this weekend, is if you go into the settings, it gives you the option to set up a link to a library. So if you're off campus and your computer doesn't tell Google that you are from OSU and you have the right to access OSU collections, and it has no way of knowing that, when you click on an article in Google Scholar, it generally will take you directly to the publisher. And you can get the article from there, but you have to pay for it. So if you set up library links, so you click library links and choose OSU here, and then choose the ticky boxes that come up, that's when you will get this Find It at OSU link in your results. And you can do that for any library, but because you can access all of our digital collections from anywhere, doing that at OSU means that you can get in through our subscriptions no matter where you are. So particularly when you're off campus, you're going to want to change that setting. Here on campus, it can tell that you're at OSU and it'll automatically give you that access. Okay, Hannah, anything to add?
Yeah, just to note that you're creating a map, and so on the blank piece of paper that you have beside you, you can create this map any way that you want. So I'm not saying, you know, you have to start at the top and make a list. However you want to make your map, but you want to have your researcher on there, and then as you explore the faculty websites and Google Scholar, add in some key terms. So for Ivan or Ivan, I'm not sure how he says his name, we would add in, Anne-Marie and I would add in salmon, and if we saw other people that he consistently worked with, I'm just going to make it up. So if he worked with Kevin, I would put Kevin's name on there as well. So add in some more information, what they work on, the topic, and some other people you see popping up. So make your map grow here a little bit.
Okay, so we'll take probably 5 to 7 minutes to do this. So you're going to look at their faculty page if you haven't done that already, or even if you have, to go back and get that information that Hannah's mentioning, and then do some searching in Google Scholar.
We're going to have maps of the professor that can find me, like,
That's it? That's your professor?
The researcher. Oh, yeah, that's just what you meant. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. You're still asleep.
there you go. That's so cool. Yeah. I think it's the author. The professor. Someone else might have written this.
Oh, she's in college of ag.
We're doing short going on. Nice. Is this your pen? No, it's not with us. Danny, that was just here. Danny, did you sign in? You guys signed in?
Yeah.
And then just paste his name.
Nematodes. Yeah. So probably for George, you're going to write Dr. Pointer. You're going to write nematodes would be one of the big things if he keeps writing about that. But he also does kind of ancient so stuff that's trapped in amber kinds of things. So if you keep seeing that, you know, so whatever trends and what he's working on, write down those things. And then if you happen to see but for example, if I saw GM on the server, that is, if I saw their name a couple times, I'd write that down too, because he continues to work.
Yeah, there at the beginning.
Yeah. So that's something you can work with multiple times, and I see that those are pretty old, so you might see too if GM Thomas Beard retired. all I know, you may change a little bit and somebody else may be, if you change the 2010, maybe that.
Well, that's it. Yeah. Amber's twice now. Nematodes. There's the second time. Third
But basically, think about your researchers. Medical engineers, they're engaged in innovation, a bunch of other researchers. And one way that they contribute to that conversation is by publishing.
No.
Yeah. So we just want you to sympathize with that conversation. So to create a map, like
Yeah.
that folks looking up, who they're talking to, things like that. So how do you do that? There's no right choices. No? How'd you choose them? Okay, so one thing that would be good for you is to flesh this out a little bit, and I think you're doing a concept map.
Yeah.
Can you describe it?
Yeah. So that's like
Basically, just talking about
it's just like connecting things to one central idea. Yeah. Like the webs that they make for like study guides and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So let's check this out. I actually don't know. He's at OSU. So amber fossils. What is this? Okay, so perfect. So this guy would be a link, and the link would be research is this. The link here, amber fossils, is further research. Insects are found in amber fossils. But how can you sort of expand this beyond, like, what's related to this? How about climate change? Oh yeah. I mean, do they find anything about climate change in amber? Yes, they do. Because the insect species that are adapted to certain climates totally change on the temperature. So I want to, try to think about this a little deeper and broader and kind of map it out.
And you're not right here, he connects the neighborhoods to the essays. No, intros are like parasites. Yeah. It's all good. It's really
Okay, now I remember you writing. Did you write about here? Okay. I'm kind of
actually
so is your map?
You stem off like nematodes and then connect it back
Okay, so we're going to come back together and add a few more concepts to this map that you're building and your picture of kind of what's going on here. One metaphor that you can use to think about what you're creating is the metaphor of a conversation. These researchers are engaged in a conversation about the topics that they're researching and that they're studying and that they're experts on. And they talk to different people. And one way that they do that, one way that they contribute to the conversation is in the publications, in the articles and the studies that they publish. And so they're engaged in a conversation and you're capturing that conversation, where it's happening and what it's about and who it's with in your map. So we wanted to pause for just a minute and focus in on that question about where it's happening, where this conversation about their research is happening. One thing the pre-assessment shown is that there's a little bit of confusion about the different types of publications that are relevant in scholarly research. So I've started here with a press release about some OSU research about oysters and bacteria. This is one, to use another metaphor, container for the information about this study. So this is a study about bacteria and oysters, and this press release, Oregon State packaged it into a press release that tells people about the study and a little bit about the researchers. It's not written by the researchers themselves. It's written by marketing people here at OSU who have created this container of information. So if I go down into the article, I can find out a little bit of information. I can find out who one of the main authors is. And I can also find out where her article about this study was published, which is in a journal called Applied and Environmental Microbiology. And that's where you'll find, that's a different kind of container about the same content. So here is where she talks about the research that she did, the methods that she used, the data that she gathered, and the results that she got. So she's writing that article herself, and where you'll find those original research articles are in academic journals. So the one container is the press release, the other one is the academic journal. And one of the most common things that you'll do as a scholarly researcher is move from one of those to the other. You'll see a notice about something in a news article or press release, and then you'll move to the scholarly article itself. So what we'd like you to do now is to spend a few minutes exploring the actual journals that your researcher is publishing in. So not just identifying the title like I've done here, but actually finding the website for the journal. See what you can find out about the topics that are published in the journal. So this one says it publishes papers that make significant contributions to applied microbiology, including biotechnology, protein engineering, bioremediation, and food microbiology, and so on. You can find out about the scholarly association that publishes the journal. You can find out about the authors that also contribute to that journal. So we want you to choose a journal from your Google Scholar list, identify the title of the journal, Google that, and see what you can learn about that publication as a publication. Any questions about that? Okay, so let's spend maybe 5 minutes doing that.
Institute Journal of Sensory Science, or Sensory Studies.
On this one?
So I did sensory studies. Do you want to couple?
It just starts with
Well,
you.
So that's your article. And then see what you can find out about it.
We're already on the journal's website.
Oh, this is the journal's website.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there should be a way to find out about the scope of the journal, about it, yeah, what kinds of articles it publishes,
Wait, how'd you get there?
and things like that.
on my phone and just Googled it over again.
We should have talked to like Kevin Duffy to research somewhere else. Because it would suck to have like a year of research that you hate.
No, I'm pretty sure this is right. This is Oxford Journal. We don't have to like Wikipedia, like the different things that
There are a lot of resources right here. My board of computers.
You guys doing okay? Mrs. Lambert, did you want to do? You guys doing okay? Yeah. Good. You got it all figured out?
They had a better one back there, Evo Devo.
You got it all sort of figured out.
I think we're slowly.
It's a good exercise. So it's a different kind of research than you typically do, or probably used to do. These are the sorts of things that you get when you're
So,
They're going to do for a while. It's really this is a good exercise. So just keep at it. You guys doing okay?
yeah.
Everything working over here, okay? Good. I like your concept matter.
All right, so I'm going to bring us back together here. So tell me, for those of you who found journals, how many of your journals had the name journal in the title? Raise your hand if it had journal in the title. So not quite half, I'd say. For those of you who didn't have journal in your title, what were some of the names of your journals? I'm going to pick on you first because yours is my favorite. Evo Devo, it's the best name ever. What are some of the other names? Yeah. Nature, very broad name. Some of the other names. Yeah. Phytopathology. Yeah, so just because they don't have journal in their name doesn't make them not a journal. We were talking over here that if we ran the world, we would make it so that they had to have journal in their title, so it would be a more clear signal. But it's not, we don't run the world, so it's not a rule. So journals don't always have the word journal in their name, so you kind of start to learn by styling where they place the name on the page, how you look for those things called journal. They're often always in the same spot. So here I'm in my Google Scholar search. It's not mine, it's Anne-Marie's. And so always kind of at the end here, I'll start to see the names of my journal titles. So food microbiology here, e-life, molecular and biotech. So I start to look in the same spot, and that gives me that clue of what the journal name is. So if I want to follow that, I can follow that. Any questions about that? All right, now you know if you want to start a new journal, Evo Devo's already taken, so you can't use that one. All right, so I'm going to switch us to talking a little bit about using some of these search tools to a smarter level so that you can get a little more value out of them. And again, just a reminder, the things that we're talking about today here are on this workshop page here that you had. And so we worked through exploring here first. We looked at finding articles and journals here second. So if you need a reminder about getting to that container, you can come here. If you want a reminder about how to set up Google Scholar so that it will talk to the OSU libraries, that's here as well. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is a little bit more in Google Scholar, but then I am going to go to this tool here called Web of Science. So just a signal here that we'll switch gears to that a little bit as well. All right, so back here in Google Scholar, I want to just point out, let's see, I sometimes lie when I say how many things I'm going to talk about. I'll say that I'm just going to talk about one thing here in Google Scholar. So this is something that I saw quite a few of you finding, and that's when you looked for a person's name, and I'm going to actually look up my name here because I can fairly reliably spell it when people are watching me. When you looked up somebody's name, you would find a user profile at the top here. How many of you found that? Yeah, so at least half of you. And when you clicked on it, you often got a little picture. Oh, I see it's being mean to me. Okay, fine. I won't do that one.
Anna really does have articles.
I really do, but not today. I can also spell Stephanie's name, but evidently not. Did she not have an IE at the end of her name? Did I spell hers wrong? Well, I'll just have to stop trying to spell things here. S.J. Green, how about that one? There we go. Sean Green, we'll pretend that's who we wanted, even though it's not. All right, Sean Green, who does not have a nice picture, but has this overview of the work that he's done. So you're looking at the profile of the articles that he's published, and so you get that list here, and it's a quick way to learn about your researcher, all of the things that he has worked on you can see here. But more than that, you can follow his citations. So how many people have read, well, I'm assuming they've read his journal article first, and then they went and wrote a journal article and used his article in their reference list. So that's what it means when somebody has a cited by option, is that they use that first article in their reference list. And so for this article here, almost 2,500 people have used that article. So that's a lot, a lot, a lot. And then over here, there's a graph that kind of shows over time how many citations he's had each year. So that's something that you can use to kind of observe that conversation piece that Anne-Marie was talking about, what's happening connected to that scholar. So when I have you start practicing and playing around again, see if your person had a profile, take a look at that. You get to see their citations and kind of their profile of how much other people have been using them in conversation over time. So that's something that you can play around with. I'm going to show you another database, and so I hinted before that Web of Science was something we were going to look at. So I'm going to show you this database called Web of Science. And here's a page that talks a fair amount about how you can use Web of Science. I'm going to show you how you can get to Web of Science if you're not on this page, since you won't usually be on this page. Web of Science is a database that the library pays for. We actually pay a lot of money for it. So this is not something that you can get for free just by Googling it. So you have to come through the library's website to get to it. And so if you come under the Find It button, this time we'll stay in the first column here under Search Tools and go to Databases. And under Databases, Web of Science is so important and popular that we just put it right here on the first page under Starting Points is Web of Science. If you forget that, there's this alphabet key here, so it starts with a W, and you could get to it that way as well. But here under Starting Points, I can click on Web of Science. So here, if I wanted to, I can put in keywords or authors' names, just like I would in any other database. I want to prove that I can spell Stephanie Green's name, so I'm going to put in Stephanie Green and lionfish. I need to just stop with Stephanie. Okay. S.J. Green. You guys will get it right later. Okay. It doesn't like that either. Who did we have back here? I'll go with Claudia. See, I was scared of spelling Claudia's last name, and so I avoided her, but that's what I get. Claudia, H-A-S-E. Anne-Marie, what am I doing?
No.
but it won't give me anything. All right, I'll be as broad as possible here. All right, so I did a search here, and I just put in an author's, potential author's last name. And so I could do it that way. I could do a topic search. Either way will work just fine. So if you start with a topic, you usually get a lot more results. So I have 161 things here. And so I said that we would look at some ways that you can add value. So I'll show you 2 ways to add value here in your search. Because I started with such a big topic, I like to use some of the tools in the database to narrow down from there. So I would come to the left-hand side, and this is a common feature in most databases, that you can play around with some refining tools on the left-hand side. So here they have a section called categories. And if I say more options, it shows me kind of all of the main topics that are being talked about in those 161 articles I had on my results page. And so I could look through and say, oh, you know, I didn't know there was an emergency medicine component to this. Maybe I want to exclude that because that's not what I'm interested in. Or maybe I could say I'm really just interested in the biodiversity and conservation issues here. And so I'll say I want to include that, and I'll say refine down here. And that gives me a much smaller set of things to look at. So it's using the database's language and tools to explore in my topic a little bit. So that's one thing you can do. One other thing that you can do, and I want to go back to where I had more results here, is that you can use the tools that sort these articles. So the default is that these articles are sorted by the most recent thing published to the oldest thing published. So up here, I have stuff that just came out in November. But I have a choice here. I can look for some other options. And one of those is time cited, highest to lowest. And we talked about time cited a little bit in Google Scholar. So this shows me the most popular article within that set of 161. And popular meaning that a lot of other people have cited it. And I can see how many other articles have cited it over here on the right. It says 92. And this can be helpful for me when I'm starting off doing research because it shows me what the most talked about articles are in this conversation, and it's a quick way to do that. And it also kind of shows me what other people might know about in my field. So that's a good way to do that kind of quick snapshot. So what I'd like you to do next is play around in either Web of Science or Google Scholar and use some of those added value things, either the profile choice in Google Scholar, or if you come into Web of Science, play with some of those refining and time-cited sorting choices to see what kind of articles are the most popular, what's most talked about in this conversation.
I'll try Web of Science. Top.
Are they the same paper?
If you want to remember how to get back to Web of Science, it's from the Find It menu and then Databases.
Published this in 2012. It's pretty recent. Yeah, I wonder if he's still here. I think so. Colleges, maybe? Maybe the college that he's in. He was in. Which is now biology, the safe one. So science. Okay, is that?
That's how I want to get back to it.
Can you just search for it? That's how.
She wasn't. She was.
He was 13.
You talked to her. Is that set up?
Courtesy taxi.
Well,
If I want to see so like, it means
a lot of the ones. Well, if this person has those sorts already.
Select index. What?
yeah.
Did she not exist?
Sure.
So you just like research.
I don't even know what this means. What?
But every person does have
No, he doesn't have
No, it just doesn't work. Keep on reading.
So, but just check to see. All I want to do is make sure that I get the right name, so that then well, I don't want to.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to bring us back together here. I recognize that while I love to search in Web of Science all day, not everyone is the same as me. But did anybody run into any questions or have any observations or anything that was interesting to them while you were doing that search? Everybody found something new about their person that they were looking at, either time-cited or something like that? Yeah. You found some more stuff?
No, you couldn't find one.
You couldn't find your person? So let me show you what I was doing wrong while you were all watching me before, which made me not as smart, and so that you can be smarter because I didn't help you out. So let me go back here. So this may have been the trouble that you had. So the default starting point here, and not all databases are this persnickety, but Web of Science cares. So here under topic, I can change that to author. And so I would have had better success here if I had done, so for my Stephanie Green problem, if I put her last name first and then type in Stephanie and have the author selected so it doesn't think that I'm searching for a topic. And then it also, okay. Then it's just going to be grumpy. Why is it grumpy forever? Did it? Oh, we have a colleague who is an F Stephanie instead of a PH Stephanie, and so she has messed up my Stephanie world. So, yes, thank you. Teamwork. Okay, anybody else want to add some advice on that? So again, that was the pickiness of this particular database, that it wanted me to have the author selected and then last name and first name, and it wanted me to spell it right. The nerve. All right, any other questions or problems? All right, so the very last thing that I am going to show you is one last tool that I would highly recommend you start using, either this particular tool or something like it. So this is a tool that helps you keep track of all of these articles that you're going to find, the research that you come across as you're collecting information about both your people and your topic. And so the tool that I'm going to show you is called Zotero. So how many of you have heard of Zotero before? Thank you in the back. Sorry, my friend has heard me talk like 2 times already. I don't have any better jokes. All right, so most of you have not heard of Zotero. So let me show you what this thing is. So Zotero is a free tool, which is a big part of why I'm showing you this tool. And so here's the website for Zotero. It's a made-up word, so don't feel silly if you haven't heard of it. And I did, while you guys were doing your Web of Science, I did what it says here. I downloaded it, so now I have it on my computer. And so if I go back and do a search again in Web of Science. And one would hope that I would have followed all my rules from before and have learned how to spell things correctly. I'm going to do a topic search for lionfish. And maybe I look here and I see, oh, this title looks interesting to me. I'm going to click on that title. I'll read the abstract a little bit. I think I want to follow up on this. Because I'm using Zotero, what I have available to me is this Z up here in the corner. And so when I click on that Z, it gives me this library that I can use on any of the websites I'm going to visit, any of the databases I search in, and I can also use it from other computers. So I have this library to start with, and because I was interested in this article, I see this little icon in the URL bar that says Save to Zotero. The icon looks a little bit like an article, and when I click on it, it starts to save it into my Zotero library. So it put in all of this information here on the side. It put in the journal title, all the authors' names, the journal title name, all this stuff that I might be interested in so that I could find this article again. I might also, once I had this article, want to take some notes. So I could add a smart note about stuff I read, and then when I'm done taking that smart note, it's automatically saved together there with that article I found. So I can take notes, I can save the thing. When I come back here into Web of Science and look at my search again, and I'm going to do one thing here. I don't like it hogging up half my screen. I'm going to hit this toggle tab mode to push it into another tab. I might come back to my search and I might realize I actually am interested in several of these articles. So if I go up to the URL bar again, I have a folder here. And if I click on that, I can pull in multiple articles at the same time. So I'll say, okay, I want 2 of those. And they're saved to my library as well. So either way, Zotero is working as kind of like a wrapper around this site. And I just check in the URL bar and see if there's an icon there I can use to pull in those articles into my Zotero library. The same thing is true, though, if I go to Google Scholar. So if I come back and do my lionfish search here in Google Scholar, you'll see right away again that I have that little folder there as well. And so I could do the same thing again here where I say, I want this one and this one and this one. And I'll now also save those into my Zotero library. And for those of you who have good eyes, you can see that because a PDF was available there, it's also pulling in that PDF for me. So I'm starting to build this library here. And for the ones that had a PDF, I can find it underneath that character. I'm starting to build this library of articles. I can also pull in websites, information about books, lots of different stuff. We have workshops that explain how to use these tools in much greater depth, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here. But I want to show you one final piece that you can do with Zotero, and that's when you come to the writing phase of your project and you need to cite things. Zotero can talk to Word, and it can talk to Word in a couple of ways. One of those ways is just if you know that you need to create a bibliography, you can select the sources here in Zotero and then just drag and drop them over there. And see, you guys are so nice. That's why I stayed till 8. And it creates a bibliography for you. So that's one way to do it. Another way to do it would be if you had to write a paper, you know, where you wrote smart stuff like that and wanted to cite that smart stuff. Zotero has some add-in tools that you can use. I'm going to say that I'm going to submit this paper to Nature. It's going to be great. And then I can add in the sources, so I'll type in lionfish and I'll pull up that paper that I want to cite that. And it'll put it in there. Nature uses a numerical style. I'll write something else really smart. Ooh, I need to cite that. So I'm going to come up again. I'm going to put in another lionfish paper. Maybe I'll put in a second lionfish paper here. All right, so I've got a couple citations. I'll start my references list. One more little button I'll push here in Zotero, which is insert a bibliography. And based on those 3 citations, it creates a bibliography for me that I can keep growing. So either the drag and drop or the create bibliography. So this is just to whet your appetite a little bit. Zotero can help you again create that library that you can use from any computer. It also then helps you when you're writing to create really nice bibliographies. So keep that in mind. You can either learn more about it on Zotero's website, which is a great place to look, or you can go to that guide that we created for this class. There's a Zotero tab on that guide as well. Any questions about that before I let Anne-Marie wrap it up? All right, it's cool. You should try it out. I use it every day, all the time.
So the last thing we wanted to do is just tell you some places that you can go when you need help during the research process. One is kind of related to what Hannah was just talking about, and that is our research workshops. There are a lot of Word documents here. Okay, so if I go back to our page, they're linked from our page, but you can also find them here on the library page as well. So we have a variety of workshops. Hannah teaches two, beginning and advanced, about Zotero. So if you're the kind of person who learns really well, sitting in a room with someone to walk you through a new tool, that would work really, really well. Where's the best place to find them? Grad students, that's what I thought. So we're going to go to the grad student section, and then this is a calendar of the workshops that are coming up. And the main ones, or the most popular workshops, are repeated every term, a couple of times a term. So you can take them when you get to the point where you're thinking about some of the skills that they cover. We also have a few other resources for help that I want to point out, and these are linked on the last tab of your page. But they're also linked from the top of our web page here under Ask Us, which will show up on most of our pages. One is the chat box that we have here. That's open from about 10 in the morning till about 10 at night. And if you run into problems in a database, or you can't figure out why you're not able to find the author, for example, that's a really good place to ask for help right in the middle of your research process without having to leave where you are to do that. We also have a resource down at the bottom that can help you do some of your own troubleshooting called Library DIY. If you click on that, it presents with a list of topics, and you can kind of navigate to the question you have. So if I have a question like, for example, do I want to use a tool like Zotero, I can go into, I need help with citations, and then that's going to lead me to, are there tools to help me make citations? And that'll give me a few different options for doing that. So you can use this to kind of cover your bases to say, is there an easy or obvious way to fix the problem that I'm having? If there is, it'll probably be something that other people have had trouble with, and it'll show up here. And then if there isn't, you can come to the chat box and ask the librarian for help. So those will always be available from the top of the webpage here under Ask Us. And I think that's all we had prepared. Any last questions? Yeah.
For the workshops, do you just come in, or do you have to save?
So there's a registration. They're free. It's really just to make sure the 200 people don't overwhelm Hannah in the room.
Well, and the other secret is it's to nag you with a reminder email the day before. So registration's optional.
Does Zotero work for Google Drive or just Word?
So it will work in a limited way with Google Drive. There are certain things you can do. The drag and drop is one of them, yes.
Yep.
And that's something that will probably continue to improve. But right now, the full power, like the cite as you go that she was doing with the in-text citations, that won't work with the Google one. Anything else? Well, thank you very much. Good luck with your research next term.
Thank you, guys.